Today we are going to talk about the Chris Fenning's first minute, the last chapter of last chapter, which is talks about how to apply these techniques, the framing as structured summaries in many situations of our daily work. For example, in the mail, and then when we are doing sending the invitations, and then status updates, and then when there is a doing the positive giving the positive messages, and then there is a escalating messages, and then if there is any if you are not prepared for answering your questions, and then during the interview how to answer the preparing for the interview answers. In all these situations we will go one by one how we need to apply these techniques. In terms of mails, we need to send a mail with some clear explanation. So here while sending the mail, we need to send with the first we need to start the subject line uh, uh, with the context, and then with the context with a single sentence or single uh, or two lines, two sentences we can explain. And then intent also it should be in the subject line, and then in the body of the messages we need to explain about the key messages. What key messages, like you can explain it as a bullet points if you want to explain more detail, but you can explain in a very few details what you want to convey. For example, uh, you don't need to explain everything in the same mail, but you can give the details, basic details, like using the GPS method, but it's mostly not needed, so you can only explain some basic details. Yeah, when you're going about whenever, anyway, the context is really important, and as well as the key messages also important. Whenever, but this contexting and the key message is not required when there is a forwarding of the mail to someone else, maybe because it already contained the message will already contains this, the key message is always context, so you don't need to follow that. So in these cases you can just forward it, and then if there is a more people are added and the mail chain is very long, then you can add the not like a forwarding. When there is a reply mails you don't need to do it, but if there is a long chain of replies, you can add there may be a distraction from your goal as well as a problem, so you need to restate the problem as well as goal to everyone to be on the same page. Or you can do one more thing, like if there is a one more person is added in the conversation, you can reinstate the context and the key messages. So likewise you need to frame the mail in terms of me sending the meeting invitations. Also in the mail there is a validation checkpoint, you need to add it as a last. When you are asking somebody some person's help or time, you need to add their availability as well as capability to answer your questions, so answer or discuss your topics. In terms of meeting invitations, anyway, same techniques are applying for the meeting invitations. You need to send the key context as well as key messages, but in terms of when it is coming to the body of the messages, you need to add something like you can split the key messages into two part. One is purpose of the meeting invitation, purpose of the meeting, and then you need to add the meeting output. You can split into two so that it will be very clear. There will be agendas are required or expected, so you can add, if it is really required you can add the agendas, but each agenda you need to add a separate context or framing if really required. Or if you are adding a very more detail, if it is really needed to add a very big descriptions, you can add a bullet points instead of having a paragraph in the mail or in the meeting invitations. That's suggested, and always use, even if you are forwarding the mail, you add some the intention of them to be included in the meeting. So that's really important. And then even if you are stated all the context as well as key messages in the invitations, when starting the meeting you need to restate those context as well as framing as well as key messages in the meeting, so it will help you. So maybe the audience might not have read your invitation key messages, or they might have forgot it, and also it will help everyone to focus on the same your problem. Also it will enable others to ask questions on your problem or goal, so that everyone will be on the same page. And then also it will give you time to prepare and read out, instead of getting nervous about the starting the conversation, starting the meeting introductions. Also it will make everyone to focus on the problem. The design of the structure summary and key messages is focusing on the problem instead of delving on the old history of the problems. So it will likewise it will help us to send the meeting invitations. In terms of status updates, we need to prepare ourselves before giving the status updates. We need to give the clear, concise explanations, like we using the context. And then also you need to clear the context is really required, and the intent is also, and the key message is required, and also the structure summary is really required when you are giving what you have worked on, and what to make it very very clear. And then also what are the next steps you are going to work on it, so that also really important. In terms of if you are not prepared for expected to answer your questions, sometimes when you are in the meeting or when you are in your discussion, somebody suddenly comes and asks you questions to answer. At the time you don't need to panic, or it's not a fun situation, but in these situations you can take a moment and then think about this framing, context, intent, and key messages, as well as goal, problem, solutions. Use these things, and then you can start with the answer your response based on these things, and the context, and then intent, and then messages. If you are not having the, for example, if you are I'm working on it, and then intent is I need to do this, and then key message is I'm doing these things, and then goal is these things, like that you can explain. But if you don't have proper answers, also it will give you the time to explain the problem or goals. Or if you don't have enough information when you are discussing, then you can tell that I will come prepared, or I will explain later, I will collect the information. So it will also give the positive impression at the time. So when we are, next step is related to the giving the escalations. Mostly the escalations are giving the heads up for the problem situation around you happening. So in this situation also it is applicable, like instead of focusing on the complaining, or instead of giving your emotions to the escalations, this key framing a structured summaries are focused on the fact based. So it will give you the next step on the actual problem to the manager or your high level positions, so they can they understand the problem you are facing, and then they can understand the solutions or next steps expected. So it will focus on the problem instead of your emotions as well as your biases. So this will help to achieve focus on those escalations instead of looking at your complaints. And the next step is, next point topic is so we talked about the giving the status as well as unexpected situations, raising escalations, and then giving the presentations. mostly this is similar situations. Mostly it is giving the information or sharing the informations, and then for this the introductions can give should be in the similar manner, like giving the structure summaries so that audience can be focused on your topic, so it will help them to focus on your colon problem and solutions. In this can be expect exceptions, like there may be if you are giving a dead style talk, or if you are giving a entertaining talk, a suspenseful speech in the presentations, then these techniques may not be applicable. So next step is like preparing an interview answers. In interview there is a great chance to apply these techniques, because there is a it is a chance to prove you are a great communicator. So in these situations, so there will be you can give, if they ask some example, like give some example in some situations you have faced some problems, or if it is a time, then when there is a tell me something about when there is a something happened. So in these situations you can use this structured summaries, context, like context or intent and key messages, and as well as core problem solutions. For some examples, author gives some two examples. One is what is the situations you have faced some problem, how you solved it. In these situations you need to start, you can in 2 minutes you can explain with these techniques. For example, context, you can give I was working on some topic, and then intent, I had to deliver something, or I had to finish this, or I need to achieve this goal. That's the intent. And then key message is the what is the problem you are facing for that in the situations. And then goal, you can tell some explanation, like you are facing the problem, I need to achieve this, I need to overcome this. And then actual problem, you can explain to overcome the problem. Actual problem, you can in detail you can tell what is the problem you are facing in those situations in detail. Even if it is repeated, it's okay, it will clearly tell, give the more clear picture of the problem. And then problem, what you have done to solve the problem, that will give more within 2 or 3 minutes you can explain all these things about what the interviewer expected. After that you can tell the time check, like if they want to continue the in-depth explanation, or if they want to go ahead with the next questions. So in the using the techniques, it will be more helpful. Similarly, you can focus on other questions also. You can prepare similarly for this using these structured techniques. So it will be very good chance to use these techniques in the interview jobs. Yeah. Yeah, the overall author explains that. So mainly, whenever there is a situation comes, the conclusion is everywhere there is there will be a problem, you need to start with that, you need to solve it. So for that you need to start with the context. So that context, if you are going to for a conversation to someone, the context is important, because you need to give the what you are working on. It will ask the audience to refocus on your what you are talking about, and then you can do what you want them to do with that information, that is intent. And then key messages, what is the impact with these situations, or key messages if you are doing it in this context. And then you need to give the key messages, and then what is the impact. And then you need to delve on the, but anyway you need to explain about the goal of what's your goal, what you want to achieve it to the audience, that's the goal. And then what is the problem, what is preventing you to achieve the goal, that is the problem. And then the solution is what you are trying to do, or what you are trying to do, what you have done to achieve solve the problem, or what you are asking from the audience or from the opposition to get the help from, that's the solution. So if you are following this, it will be very helpful to clearly, concisely and explain about, and also you need to practice more on the situations. You need to write it down every time, so it will become a habit, and then it will get you more far ahead as a great communicator. It will be very, it will show you as a very great communicator. And thank you. We can meet with the different books and we can discuss. That's all.